Before this video starts, I want to go ahead and say that there will be characters in this scenario that you will not recognize, two of which are Suki Ida and Kenji Kaminari, which are two characters for siblings for Ida and Kaminari that I created myself. And this is not to be taken too literally, as, you know, it's fan-made. But I figured that it would be cool if I shared, you know, a fan-made scenario I wrote for Kamijiro with you guys, and depending on how this does, we will see if I will do more things like this in the future. But without further ado, let's go! Chaos. That was a pretty good word to describe the city streets right now. Pros and villains alike were going down left and right, with even more from both sides coming by the minute. Denki Kaminari raced across a few feet of fallen building debris, pulling Suki Ida close behind. He needed to get her to the bus safely so that Aizawa and Vlad King could get the kids to another part of town, where they'd be safe. Arriving at the bus, Denki helped Suki up the steps, and then stood by Aizawa, surveying the scene. Noting Jiro doing a lot of the busy work by making the ground uneasy with sonic booms, Denki decided that she would probably need some help. The girl was amazing with her sound abilities, but if she was so busy making the ground crumble, what was she supposed to do if a villain got too close, so that she couldn't break the ground without causing it to swallow her as well as the villain? Denki found himself anxious just considering the possibility. Before he ran back out into the battle, however, he felt a tug at his sleeve. He looked over his shoulder to see his younger brother, Kenji, standing there. "You sure you can go back out there?" he asked, an uneasy look on his face. Denki smiled at him. He appreciated his brother's concern. However, his main priority was keeping those he cared about, Kenji included, safe. He gave his brother a confident nod. "I've got a bunch more energy left," he replied with a smile. "I need to help Jiro out. She's awesome, but she may be biting off more than she can chew. I just need to help her so that she doesn't burn herself out. It would suck if we had two brain-dead people." Kenji smiled a bit at his brother's joke, but then he still looked a bit concerned. "There are just a lot of villains," Kenji pointed out. "Please be careful." "Since when am I not careful?" Denki asked, and receiving a look from Aizawa, followed up with, "You know what? Don't answer that." With that, Denki ran back out into the battle, leaving Kenji standing in the doorway of the bus, and Aizawa just to the side. They still needed a few more students before they could leave. Denki made sure to make a mental note to keep an eye out for any more UA students that he would need to get to safety. On his way to Jiro, Denki found himself getting nearly jumped by an attack from a villain above. Denki dodged out of the way just in time, and found himself being stalled. He really hoped that Jiro could keep her attacks up without help for just a few more minutes. While tussling with the villain, Denki was slammed into the ground not once, not twice, but 3 times, every time the force making his head go to the left. He would then get back up and resume his fight. Except for the 3rd time. The 3rd time he was slammed to the ground, Denki stopped for a moment, staring to the side when his head hit the ground. He hadn't noticed it while he was fighting, but sometime between when he had brought Suki to the bus and when he was fighting the villain, the pro-hero Snipe had been knocked unconscious. Denki noticed a tall villain calmly walking over to Snipe, muttering to himself. But by reading his lips, Denki could make out bits and pieces of what he was saying. "Lousy heroes," he said, lifting the gun that had been in Snipe's hand from the ground. He fiddled with it a bit, as if getting used to it being in his hands for a few seconds, before smiling. A smile that Denki personally did not like. There was something devious behind it. The villain looked at the gun and spoke again. "Looks like Sonic Boom Girl is the powerhouse right now," he said to himself. Denki's heart began to pound faster. He didn't like where this was going. Time seemed to slow down with the villain's next actions. He cocked the gun and pointed at Jiro. "Why don't we fix that?" Denki's body went into full panic mode. Snipe had been using that gun no more than 5 minutes ago, meaning that the safety was no longer on. As long as it was loaded, which it most of the time was, anyone could use it right now, including the villain that had it in its grasp. Snipe was right there, but he wasn't even conscious. There was nothing he would be able to do to stop it. And Jiro didn't even know that her life was in danger. There was no way that just yelling would get her attention in time. She had her headphones on to protect her ears from the sonic booms she was creating. She wouldn't be able to hear him. Denki rolled over onto his hands and knees, kicking the villain that he was battling with away in the process. The first thought was to run at the villain and try to disarm him. But what if the villain found a way to get Jiro even with Denki trying to stop him? No. The more likely solution would be to get Jiro out of the line of the shot. Denki started running towards Jiro. Even with all the debris around him, he somehow found a way to evade it and get closer to her. He only had a few seconds at the most. Denki didn't even know what was happening. It was almost as if his body was moving on its own. Please, he begged in his head. Please, let me make it in time. Denki found himself calling out Jiro's name, even though he knew that she couldn't hear him. Faster, dang it! He wasn't even calling her by her hero name or her last name. He was so afraid he just kept repeating her first name over and over again. Kyoka! Kyoka! He didn't know how much time he had left. He had to try and get her out of the way. Now! He leapt from where he was standing, stretching out as far as he could towards Jiro. A gunshot sound, as loud as Jiro's sonic booms rang out. So loud that everyone, including Jiro, froze. Denki collided with Jiro about 0.2 seconds after, his head ramming into her just below her shoulder. They flew forward, Denki wrapping his arms around her, and Jiro turning her head in surprise to see him. Not a second after, Denki felt the worst pain he'd ever felt hit his temple. And then, more chaos. Kenji jumped from the bus, Aizawa immediately grabbing him from behind and keeping him from running onto the battlefield. Aizawa could practically feel Kenji's pain in his agonizing screams, calling for his brother as he and Jiro fell from where Jiro had been standing moments before. Denki and Jiro fell off of a concrete pillar, into one of the crevices that Jiro's sonic booms had created, but then were caught on a small ledge about a few feet from the surface. Jiro landed first, with Denki falling on top of her. And then, Jiro looked at Denki with nothing short of horror. His face was scuffed up, the right lens of his sunglasses shattered. But that wasn't the scariest part. On the left side of his head, Denki's bangs were already covered in a splotch of scarlet orange, and when Jiro moved them out of the way to get a better look, she nearly fainted when she saw a small bullet hole just barely above his temple. Oh my gosh! She began panicking, yanking her headphones down around her neck and then yanking off her jacket and pressing it against Denki's head to help with the bleeding. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Kaminari? No response. Jiro's hands began to shake. She tried taking a few deep breaths to calm herself down. She needed to stay calm if she wanted to help Denki. She had been taught what to do if someone was shot. She needed to apply pressure to the bullet wound to get the blood to clot until Denki could get professional help. She also needed to keep him warm in case he went into shock. But Jiro found nothing that she could use to keep Denki warm, as she was using her jacket to stop the bleeding. So she just pulled his own jacket around him tighter, and taking his head into her other hand, tried to get him to talk to her. Come on, she pleaded. Say some stupid flirty joke or something. Let me know you can talk to me. She could feel tears beating in the corners of her eyes. Denki had saved her life. And now it didn't seem like there was anything that she could do to stop him from losing his. About 5 seconds later, Denki weakly moved his arm to where he had hold of hers, his hand clutching her forearm weakly about 2 inches from where she was holding his head. His eyes were barely open. Hey, Jiro, he began. Do you remember when we were choosing our hero names, and you said that I should pick Jaminge because I short-circuit all the time? He smiled weakly. You know, I think I like the sound of that name now. That's good. Keep talking to me, Jiro said, not in the mood for jokes, but still wanting Denki to keep talking to her. Why is your jacket against my head? You saved my life, Kaminari. But you got shot instead of me. I'm trying to stop the bleeding, but I can't do much in keeping you warm so that you don't go into shock. Tears began running down her face. I'm sorry. I wish I could do more. Jiro, please don't cry. I hate seeing you cry, Denki pleaded. I wouldn't worry about it. I get this weird warm feeling every time I'm around you anyway. Jiro sniffled. It's not funny when you could die, Kaminari. Funny you should bring that up, he feebly added. I have a bit of a request that I need to ask you. A request? Jiro asked. What would that be? I
want you to look after Kenji if I can't after today. Please. He needs someone. And I want it to be you.
Jiro was a bit taken aback.
Don't say that, Kaminari! She said, more tears running down her cheeks. You act like you don't think you'll make it. You're gonna make it! We both know the possibilities for me making it aren't high, Jiro, Denki pointed out. I want you to promise me in case I don't. Please. I want to die knowing my brother will be taken care of. You're not going to die! But if I do... If you do... Jiro paused. Then yes. I promise I will. But you're not going to. I won't let that happen. Denki let out a bit of a laugh. You say that like you can decide when I die, Jiro, he said, and then looked up from where they had fallen. It's a bit peaceful now. Do you think Deku finally came?
I don't know, Jiro replied. I hope so.
You know, Jiro, I always thought you were pretty awesome. I know that you're gonna make a great hero.
Jiro felt her face heat up. She could tell she was blushing, and smiled sadly at Denki.
So are you, Jaminye, she joked. We'll be the greatest hero team there ever was. You'll see. Team, Denki thought aloud. I like the sound of that.
His grip on her arm weakened slightly. He was fading fast. About 10 seconds later, Ida and Deku finally appeared in the crack in the concrete, holding a rope ladder and a gurney being floated by Uraraka.
Thank goodness we found you! Ida exclaimed. Jiro, we're going to send Uraraka down. Help her get Kaminari onto the gurney safely.
That's all I have so far. I guess let me know if you want a part 2. I know, it's a bit intense and probably very cringy, but yep, that's all I got. Love you guys. Bye!